Thank you so much for joining me on the Ground Up series. I'm pretty much glad to have you all on board. And my name is Ian Mingo. Today, we're actually going to be looking at how to install your AWS CLI and then to interact with that. So make your first interactions with that. And if you had read my blog previously, I listed out a couple of options that you could follow to do that installation. All right, so you could always check that out. You could always check out my Medium blog and then just get an update on that. So this is actually a complement to that, and it ties in with the idea of this ground up series where I have the written post and then a complementing video walkthrough, okay, where I get to now take you guys through everything. Now for today, key things you're looking at is how to get the access key. I mean, we looked at that in the blog post, talking about the IAM user creation already. And then we'll see how we can now install the CLI. So both on Windows and then on the Linux platform. And then we now get to configure that with the access key that we generated or that we got from our console. And then finally, we could also look at how to validate the installation. All right. So as much as possible, I try to keep these bite-sized. Okay. It makes for an easier approach rather than to clam all of us on so many things. So let's see how that goes. So first off, we'd want to go ahead and then so we'll actually finish up with the installation, okay, and then we'll come back to the access key. All right, now take note, there are two versions of the CLI available. Okay, so there's the version 1 and then the version 2. We'll see how we could actually go ahead and then install all of those for if you are using a Linux system. So I'm actually using a Linux system, so it's pretty straightforward. So let's see. So I just have to run the command sudo apt install AWS CLI. Okay, now that actually installs that for me. And then once that installation is done, I have my CLI done. I could configure it and then I could get all that I wanted to do done. So if I type AWS, it gives me some information to tell me that, okay, this is actually possible to use. So if I do even the configure, I get to see a number of details which are here, placed here already. Okay. Let's try something. So S3LS, see that we actually have some bucket showing, which is totally fine because I had configured that pretty much earlier. So that's totally fine. Going ahead, I want us to uninstall that. So we have that version, okay, and I want us to install the latest version just to give us a fair idea of what's available, and then we can just configure and then validate that instead, okay, and then of course look at the access key as well. So let me just remove that. All right, so I could just take that off and then I'm pretty much good to go. All right, now if I come back to the documentation right now, here you see where we have the curl. Okay, it gives us a link of where we can actually get the file, okay, the file that we can use, or the setup for the AWS CLI when it comes to Linux. Okay, so I've already downloaded that from this particular link. Okay, so I have that here and I've already downloaded that. If I go to my downloads folder, I will see that what that zip file is actually here. Okay, so that's here already. Okay, which is good stuff. And I've already unzipped that. Okay, so that's with the ELS AWS. So if I do an ls AWS, I get to see all of the files which are listed there. So let me just do a cd AWS. Okay, and let me do a cut. I found some very interesting stuff there. Okay, so once you download a zip file, it's very straightforward in terms of the installation. So if I do the readme, okay, it tells you how you could actually go ahead to do the installation. Okay, so the steps to go about that. Okay, and then how do you call it, without sudo, how to remove that when it's finally done. Okay, so let me just run the installation to finish that. So sudo dot install, right, and then that actually does that for me. So key things that it does is that it's able to put in a couple of things in place for us. So the CLI, it's able to link the files and all of that. That's something that we don't have to worry ahead about. So let me do AWS dash version. Let's see what we have here. All right, so if I do AWS dash version, I get 2.15. Okay, which tells me that what it's actually the latest version. All right, so that's pretty straightforward there. Now, going on, I want us to configure the CLI. All right, so if I come to my console, I'm actually using my IAM user here. That's the Ian Mingo instructor. You can see that I do not have access to billing data, which is actually one indicator, of course, because I gave some bit of permissions there. So that's pretty straightforward. So I go back to the IAM user and then I find my user. So I come to my users here, and then within the users, right, I get to open that from here. And once I open that, okay, so I already created my access key and all of that. So that's actually showing there. So I could just, let me just do a dummy walkthrough of that. So create the access key, right? I specify, okay, I want to use it for the command line in this case, right? And then I have to confirm, okay, in terms of all of this, because once your access key gets out there, that becomes probably the end of you. So that's totally fine. If I wanted to add a tag, sorry, I would go ahead and then add that. In this case, I already have the access key available, so I've stored that, all right, which is pretty straightforward. So I could just come here and let me show you the access key. All right, so I have that here. So the access key and then the secret access key. Now let me go back to my terminal and let's see how we can configure the terminal now. So if I type the AWS configure, all right, if I type that out, I'm able to now paste these values in there. All right, so the key, I have to copy it and then I could paste it here. All right, now once I paste that, then I could also add for the secret access key. Okay, I paste that also, and then I could specify the region. Okay, so whatever region I specify, that becomes the default region that the commands will run through. Okay, and then it's pretty straightforward for you. And then the format, so what format do you want to store your files in, those are also stated, and then you are good to go. Okay, so that becomes that. So JSON is pretty straightforward. You notice that a lot of things in AWS, either you have JSON or you have some other format. Okay, so either JSON or YAML. Okay, so whichever one you want to use, you could actually go ahead and then specify that. So with that said, we have a CLI configured, and then we could go ahead, create some buckets, and whatever we want to do, we can do that. Now, one last thing I want to show you is the command reference. Okay, so if you look in the blog post, you'd actually see that there. Or if you like, you can just type out AWS command CLI reference. Okay, so I could just type command line, that still works fine. Reference. Okay, let's see. Yes, so that actually gives you the command references. Okay, now take note of the version. Okay, you notice that on the page it actually shows 1 point something, but literally they are all the same. So if I wanted for S3, I could just search that out. So S3. Okay, and then I could check that out. So whatever commands are available or whatever commands I want to work with, all of these are here. So if I want to copy something, if I want to list a bucket, make a bucket, all of these are available to me. Now, if I do the AWS S3 LS, okay, of course, the bucket shows. That tells me that it's actually working. Okay, so if I come here in my console, you can still see the buckets available. All right, so the buckets are literally the same in there, and then you are good to go. All right, now one last thing maybe I'll talk about. Of course, you can set different profiles. Okay, I already have a profile set. So that's auditor. Okay, S3LS. Okay, it literally is the same. Oh, I'd not specified them. That okay, auditor. Yeah, so I have that done, and then it still lists these out for me. So I could have different profiles in there for different tasks or different services that I want to do, and then I could have my default how do you call it, my default profile. Okay, so those are things that I could do. So if I wanted to create a new profile, I still do the configure. Okay, profile. Oh wait, AWS dash profile. Okay, then I specify the profile. So let's say police, if I wanted that, and then I could specify in terms of how do you call it, the configure, right? So I do that. It asks me for the key that I want to specify for these, okay? And then once I paste that in there, it's able to add that for me. Okay, so if I come to the credentials file, let's see. So if I come to my credentials file, you can see the name of the profile, the default, and then auditor. Now I'm not finished with the police profile, so that's why we do not see that there. So whatever profile I specify, right, it now provides the access key, provides the secret access key, and then those are available to me. Now, of course, if I go to the there is another file here. Okay, so so that's the config. Okay, there's a config file. Let me just list out the files here. Okay, I'm not in the right folder. So AWS, okay, config, right? Now that would actually list out some other details based off the profile. All right. Now, if I had a temporary key also, now that will mean that there will be some token attached to whatever credential config file that I have here, and then those are also things which are available. All right. So you could also read about that anyway, and then we'll be pretty much good to go. So that brings us to the end of how to do that in terms of the Windows environment. And I can tell you that, you know, the point where we now have to download the file, it's almost the same thing. So we just download that, we install that on the Windows side of things, and then it's pretty much okay. But I'll just switch to the Windows environment, and then I'll show you how it's done on the Windows environment as well. All right, so welcome back. So I've switched to my Windows environment, and it's pretty straightforward here. First thing we have to do is to download the installation file, which is here. Now I have that already downloaded. All right, so I have that here. And so all I have to do is to just double click on that. It's about a few megabytes, and you just follow the prompts. It makes it very simple for you. Okay, if you need to change some things, that's totally fine. Depending on how do you call it, depending on how you want to go from there. So just follow the prompt, and then it actually goes ahead to complete all of that for you. So let's just wait for that to finish. And then once it's done, I would actually open my Git bash. Okay. Here, so I prefer to use the bash environment. You could use the command prompt, any of those. So let me just open the command prompt as well, CMD here, and then we could see how that goes as well. So let's see, is it done installing? Not yet. Just a few minutes to finish, and then we could see that. All right, so the installation is actually done. We can see that it's completed, so we just hit the finish. Now let's see something here. So if I come here, I type AWS, it shows that it's actually available. Let me type that in the command prompt as well. That's also available here, right? So AWS configure, then we can get like a hang of how the details would look like. So I previously set some, how do you call it, dummy bits of that. So let me just set that with the right values in there with the access key and then the secret access key. So let me just do that here, and then we'll proceed from there. So I have that here. Then let me add secret access key. Of course, it's important that you be careful how you share these ones. Okay, so just take note of that. I mean, for tutorial purposes, I'll have to take them off once I'm done. All right, so I have that done. Let's see if we can see our buckets. I did them, but let's see what we can see or what we can view from there. So AWS S3 LS, right? We do not have anything showing. We don't have anything showing though, but it just tells us that it's working. So let's see AWS S3. Okay, so let's make a bucket, and then let's see. Yeah, still with the buckets that we had much earlier. So test 4. Okay, let's just start with test 4. That's fine. Quav stars. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the syntax is actually not correct. Okay, so let me just fix that. S3, you have to actually do the URI. Okay, S3 colon, then the slashes, before the name of the bucket. So we'll just do that, and then we should be good to go. Yep, so that's created. So even if we come to the console, right, we come to the S3, we would actually get to see that particular bucket there. So that means that we have that working. Okay, so it's a good thing, and you see that it's pretty straightforward and then pretty easy to set up. So you have the installation file done, then you have the other aspects also, and then you are good to go. So this is our test bucket. It was just created now, so that's totally fine. All right, great. So I think that's that for what we covered today, and I'm sure you actually did get to learn a few things installing that. But don't forget, the reference guide is always available for any of us who would actually want to check that out, and then just go ahead and then read that. And of course, with the blog post, that's also available in my Medium blog, so you could always check that out. Medium at Native Niakwe, and then you could take a look at that. All right, so Medium at Native Niakwe, and then you can check out the blog. That would actually be listed here sometime soon, and then you can see the listing of the other blogs within the series here as well, and then you could just take a look at that. So let's see here. Yeah, so the whole lot in there, and then I'll have the rest of them coming through. So we have this as the first video, and then we have 3 more coming in the next couple of weeks as well. And then of course the recordings, the blogs also remain constant there. And then of course I'll share the link here. So blog 3 is actually, the link will come pretty soon, and then I'll add the video as well. All right, great. So with that said, thank you all so much. And the key things we were looking at today is in terms of how we can generate and then the access key and then a secret access key, and then how we'll now go ahead to install that. So on this on the AWS CLI on Linux, and then also on Windows, and then how to validate that is actually working. So that definitely works super fine. And of course, if you wanted to use that on the Mac, okay, you could also take a look at that here. So with that, it's also pretty straightforward. You can use the GUI, you can use the command line. I believe there should be an option to use brew. Okay, I don't suppose there is brew. Okay, there's no brew there, but I mean, there are quite a number of options you can follow that. These are the main ones that I use. That's why I actually went ahead to show that. But I believe maybe you could start off with the graphical user interface or a package file, and then you install that. It actually gives you that whole outlook of that, and then you are pretty much good to go as well. So with that said, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you actually got to learn something new, and I'll definitely be looking forward to what we have for the next couple of days. Okay, so talking primarily about, let's say, billing. All right, but all the same, thank you so much, and this has been Ground Up, and it's been great having you all around, and I'm definitely looking forward to our next post. So just keep an eye out for that, and wishing you all the best. As always, I'm Ian Mingo, and thank you for joining.